Hello and welcome again to Conscious TV. I'm Iain McNay, and today our guest is Nishant Matthews. Hi Nishant.
Hi.
And Nishant has a book out called The Friend, which we're going to talk about later on. And we're also going to hear about Nishant's spiritual journey through life, a very interesting journey he's had, and our paths have crossed several times over the years. So you've actually just come out of a kind of 3-week retreat, haven't you? Because you had an operation and you've come to London. So it must be a bit of a shock coming to a busy city, having been very quiet for 3 weeks.
Yes, for 2 weeks I was just in my room only, still in pain from a surgery, and just really breath by breath, by breath, by breath, by breath, awake, asleep, breath by breath. And getting up and getting to the next room was an adventure in itself. So to suddenly be in the city with the cars and the traffic and the busyness it's exciting.
We take a lot for granted with our bodies, don't we?
Yes. And there's always the assumption everything's going to carry on the way it has always been carrying on. But every now and then something knocks on the door of that assumption and you say, it's not like that.
Yeah. But as you were saying, it's this presence, just being there with whatever happens, is a great help and a great support, isn't it?
Yes. I have to say that's what I really, really love. I've been with people who are dying. I've helped people to die, to leave the body. I've been people sick, people in pain, people in trouble, people are happy. And this art of just being with it, being with it, being with it, being with it.
So when you say you love it, Nishant,
Yes.
what do you mean by you love it? What attracts you to that?
Same thing that had me hanging off of cliffs when I was 22 years old. And it's this realness. There's something real when you're so present, so total. And in that realness, life isn't what you thought it was. Something else starts to happen.
And what's this something else?
Silence, love, gratefulness, intimacy, and opening into this something more.
And when you're with someone who's dying, does it bring sadness up in you?
Of course. And for me, there's been 3 or 4 times where I've been actually invited by people to help someone to die. One of them was a very, very close friend. And there is sadness. And for me, the sadness, if I can be with the sadness and breathe it and open my heart to the sadness gives way and there's something else. And if I can be with that, there's something else. And if I can be with that, there's something else. And rather than the dying turning into a this, it turns into a this.
So it's an expansion,
yes,
rather than a contraction.
Yes.
Because dying is an adventure, isn't it?
It is. And it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
I have to tell you a story. I have to tell you a story. A very close friend, who you remember, actually, Isa.
Okay.
Brain cancer.
Yes.
Tried everything, did everything.
I just remembered who she is. She was in the 6-month project we were both in.
Yes.
That's right.
Right.
And she worked as a therapist with the Eagles. That's what I remember
right.
about
She
her.
was
The
touring
band,
with the
yeah.
Eagles band.
Yeah, yeah.
And working with a therapist, and then diagnosis of brain cancer. Tried everything, UCLA, this medical, best homeopath, best vitamins, best. Didn't work. I get a call. I'm just back from Sweden. I get a call. If you want to see her, come soon. My partner and I drove the whole night through. We get to her house, and Isa is radiant. She was just radiant. Somebody called to buy her Pilates equipment, and she said, you know, that's not a good enough offer. And she knew she had less than 2 days left to live, and she just turned it down. It wasn't a good enough offer.
Yeah.
She was radiant.
Mm.
But then the disease progressed, and she was on oxygen. And the last night I was there with her, my partner Komala sat in a chair by her side. I slept on the floor. At dawn, I got up and said, let me sit in the chair. And I tried to communicate with her, because I'm pretty good at communicating with people non-verbally. But she was just gone, and I hadn't slept much, and I was fuzzy. But I had my light equipment, and she was in this collapsed, and I took my Aura Soma pink light, which is the color for peacefulness and love, and just started to stroke it over her midline. And this collapsed body sat up straight, absolutely straight like this. And then I heard her voice say, not in words, but just inside me, you've come this far, keep going. So from this Tibetan training I had, I knew that best if the soul comes out through the top of the head. So I just took the Aura Soma light and just circled up here off her body, and then went like that. And when I went up like this, the light was out. Isa didn't breathe anymore. And then I heard her voice say very clearly, and in the kind of accent only Isa would have, hey, this isn't so bad. And then I just started shaking and crying, because Isa just started to fill the whole space. And you become aware that, you know, we think of ourselves as inside this body, but we're actually much, much bigger beings that somehow get stuffed into a little body for a period of time.
And that seems to be one of the challenges of our lives, is to realize that we're not just a human being living in this body. We're far, far more than that.
Yes. Yes. And to synchronize this big with this small, with this non-suffering, with this suffering, with this eternal, with this momentary in time, to synchronize those two and have them play with each other, not separate or dissociate, but that they actually turn into best friends.
Because we are both, and it is almost like a dance, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is a dance, and to have it a dance of friends.
I'm just going to go back to, just so people get an idea of your life.
Yes.
Because I think there's some significant things happen for you. And you had a experience when you were 20 years old, which I think first gave you an idea that you were more than just a human being in a body. Do you want to just tell us about that experience?
Sure. I was nearly finishing university. I had good marks and on this team and that, and plans to go to prestigious law school, and everything was in place and as it should be. And then out of the blue, I started to have this terrifying feeling of falling. It was sometimes so intense that I would grab onto trees.
So when you say experience of falling, what does that actually mean? You mean your body's going to fall over, or?
No, it was here in the solar plexus. It was like the world starts spinning, which when I would lay in my bed at night, I had to grab on all four posts. Everything spins.
But was it really spinning? Or were you dizzy, or was it you felt the spinning without?
Felt the spinning.
Okay.
The world doesn't spin.
Okay.
But this feeling of spinning, and suddenly nothing is solid or in place, and this feeling of falling. I was with friends, and they're talking, and suddenly it's like this. It's just like the connection just starts to fall apart. And I tried to grab on to anything that could keep me normal. Friends, they kind of laughed but didn't know what to do with me. I talked to the chaplain of the university, who was a good friend, and he said I would get over it. And I called my parents, and they didn't know. I more or less got the feeling I'm alone with it. And then at night, it was so intense, I thought I was going to throw up. The whole room is spinning. And I'm just holding on. And then I tried to go to the comfort of my mind, where I could say, I won this tennis match, or I got this award, or I have this promise, or I have this future. And it was like all of those things just falling, and nothing stopped the falling. And there wasn't any solidness in all of this that I could say was my life.
So it was a disintegration of you as how you saw yourself at the time.
Yes. There was a disintegration of all the locations I had for myself. This, that, good, future, past, sun, all of these things didn't hold. It went on for 3 days. I would say terrifying is the right word. And then on the third morning, I woke up and I said, I'm on the ground. And so very simple, I'm from a place called Missouri in USA, where it's very simple kind of thing. I said, I know two things. One is any time I could start falling. And the other thing I know is that if you fall far enough, you hit the ground. And that there is a ground. But that ground wasn't anything that I had thought it was. I had worked hard to get an A in this, or to win this, or be a member of this. The ground had nothing to do with all those things that I had worked for.
So what did you feel was the new ground you found at that time?
That there's a base in existence. There's it's not who I want to be, but there is some reality, some base in existence that's solid and true.
And in that, there was a kind of a feeling you could start again, move forward again.
Yes. But let's just say very carefully.
No.
Very
Say it as you feel, yeah.
Yeah. But it was that feeling of the base that got me into meditation. That got me into sitting and seeing that the base isn't the mind and all the things that you build up in your mind, or even in the connections that the heart has with people. The base is something deeper than all of that.
So the experience triggered you, obviously, to explore meditation and the wider field, I presume, at that time.
Yes.
So what did you start with? What was the first thing you tried?
I started to Eastern spirituality. I studied Japanese drama, the No drama. I started doing Zen meditation in New York City. I had a book of Suzuki Roshi, and I was hiking through the Himalaya, and every day 1 page sit, 1 page sit, 1 page sit. And then slowly, slowly letting this, letting the space of my life open up. So I wasn't always determined from here to there, but just have a little space in between. To kind of wait a little longer. To not finish the tea and go. Not identify so much with the accomplishment, but with, here it is. Just the kind of curious, here we are, like that.
So obviously something triggered you to go to the Himalayas, and that was, I guess, the next stage of your journey.
Yes. I had a fellowship from the IBM Corporation, the Watson Fellow, to travel to India and study religion. And so first place was the Himalaya for me.
Must have been incredible seeing the mountains there, the height and the power of them.
It was awesome. I have been a mountain guide and rock climber, and I know, but I've never seen anything like the Himalaya. You look up, and you look up, and you look up, and you look up, and it is a home of higher consciousness. I know that's an awful, silly thing to say, but it is a place where higher consciousness knocks on your door pretty easy. I'll tell you a story. It's Easter, and I'm hiking through the Himalaya looking for a good place to put my little tarp, have my Easter meditation days, because Easter still meant a lot to me at that time. And I come around a corner, and there's 3 little houses, a little square, and a tree, and a man sitting under the tree. And I take one look at this man, and he's a man I have never seen before. He's happy, he's relaxed, he's radiant. And there's no reason for it. And I think if I hadn't had this experience of falling and this experience of base, I wouldn't have had any understanding of this man. Because for me, happiness was something that you accumulated or acquired or would get, and it was just sitting. And he smiled at me and said, "Come, sit here." And for the Capricorn 21 or 22-year-old at the time, just get me to stop climbing when I started climbing is a deal. But I saw him and I said, "I will." And I sat there and we just sat quietly for 5 minutes. And that's something I had never done with anybody, to a stranger, just sit quietly for 5 minutes. And then just out of awkwardness and to make some connection, I said, "What do you do?" And he laughed just like you just then, and he said, "I sit under this tree." And at this point, something you could almost hear like this mental landslide started in my brain, that someone could look you in the eye and say, "I just sit under this tree." Something just started to fall. And he said, "When I need money, I go down to the village below and I work as a tailor, and when I have enough money, I come back up and sit under this tree." And that did it. My mind just started like this Indiana Jones Last Crusade. Just this whole thing started falling down, that life is something you plan and something you execute and something you do, and you have a program. And we sat there and had tea. I sat with him for a couple hours, and then he smiled, and I smiled and walked off. I never saw him again, but here it is, nearly 40 years later, and I'm still touched and still remembering that moment of realizing that life doesn't have to be what I thought it was going to be.
So that was another way you let go. When you were with him, you just let go some more of your identification and the one
It
you
would
thought
be
you
noble
were.
to say I let go, but the actual experience was it started falling.
So what's the difference? Let's have a look at that. So it.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm interviewing you. You should be. The idea is you talk. I just asked the question. So how's it for you?
When I say it would be noble, if there was enough understanding in me to say I surrender my future or I surrender my plans, I think that would be the noble thing. But as it is, I'm 22 and Capricorn and on my way to a meditation in the mountains. I didn't consciously give it up. It just, there was some recognition of truth in that hit me so hard that it just started to fall all by itself. Just the same way that this falling happened in university. I didn't ask for it or look for it.
And this time, I presume you weren't trying to hold on so much.
No. But still, I have to say it like this. As I have come, I've worked as a therapist for years and investigated in the past, and there's a part of me that always, always, always wanted to honor my mother and father and give them the son that they expected or the son that they wanted. So even if I was having a strong religious experience of sitting under a tree or something like this, there was strong conditioning to be the American son who could be someday someone they would be proud of.
Yes.
And to write a postcard home, dear Mom and Dad, I'm now sitting under a tree.
Yeah.
See you in 20 years. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. And you got to the top of the mountain. You got to your meditation retreat.
Yes.
And how was that?
First 2 days were fantastic. I felt this deep, deep, deep silence and just gratefulness. And I knew I had been touched, but I was too scared to go back. Then on the third day, a huge storm came along. And the storm was so intense. I was up in this is a long time ago before fancy gear and stuff like that. I had just a little tarp. And the storm was so strong and so close that I could feel the ground shake when the lightning hit. It was that close. And the wind was so strong that it ripped my tarp up. And when my tarp ripped up, sheets of rain came down, and one of my boots went rolling down one of these Himalaya mountainsides, which is very steep. And the lightning was so intense that I could walk down the mountain in the lightning light and find the boot and bring it back. Because I knew if I didn't have my boot and I didn't keep my sleeping bag dry, I wasn't going to survive. And the next morning I woke up and everything was covered in snow. I ended up having to walk in snow this deep in blue jeans and a backpack. And the snow also completely obliterated all signs of the path and the trail. And I got to this, I was out of food, and I got to this pass, and there was no sign, it was just this big white Gans field. And I said, what do you do now? And I remember standing there in the snow falling down, white Gans field. What do you do now? One step and you're full. And this voice said very clearly, you have to think the way an animal would think. And I said, okay, if I was a deer, I would go this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. So I started walking just as if I were a deer. And I came right down to the path.
So something was guiding you, was looking after you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something pulls the rug out from under me and guides me.
And that's a hard thing to always remember in life, isn't it? That possibly, as you say, the rug's being pulled, and then we often go into fear or panic or anxiety, and it's a question of just staying with what's happening, and maybe, and actually probably, something else will emerge.
Yes.
It takes a bit of courage to do that.
It takes a huge amount of courage, and as we'll talk about later, also, I think, skill.
Yeah.
But also, I would also say a field, you know. If you're with certain people, you don't mind going off-road. If you're with other people, going off-road is terrifying. It really depends on the presence and the field.
So how has that been for you, discriminating between these different kinds of people? How have you dealt with it? How have you learnt that?
You know, I think that this, just if we can go back to this experience of falling, and that there's a ground. If you've ever really hit the ground, something happens in your belly, and then you can tell where other people have that. You know, where they have a sense of ground in them too. And I can trust this person this way. I can trust this person that way. And maybe I can't trust this person for this, but for this I can trust. And you get pretty good sense of, does this person know the ground here? And you can walk that ground with them.
Because I know we're probably jumping ahead a bit here, but I know you went to Pune.
Yes.
And you became a disciple of Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, who's now known as Osho. He's obviously dead now, but he became Osho. And that was a very significant time for you, wasn't it? It kind of... Do you want to talk about how that adventure was for you?
Sure. I would say it you know, I had been meditating. I'd been with Chogyam Trungpa, and I'd been with Zen training and reading and studying and da-da-da-da-da. But I still knew something deep was just missing. Something was really missing.
Because you do say in The Friend that you were looking for someone who really knew, because you felt a big hole somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, that feeling of looking for someone who knows started the day I finished graduate school. I walked out with a very big degree and stood on the steps of the school, and this voice says, "Nishant, you've been in school now for 17 straight years. What do you know?" And because I had these experiences, I could be a little more truthful than usual, and I said, "Not much. Actually, nothing." And it's not like I can think, if you ask me, what do you know about this and know about that, I could, I made A's and passed grades and da-da-da. I could write great. But know means to sit here and be here. Really be here. And that quality of being wasn't here. The knowing that comes out of being. And that's what I started looking for. I said, I have to find somebody who knows. And who knows from being. Not who knows from studying, who knows from hearing, but who has the perception that comes out of being.
And when you got to Pune, you felt you found that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one look with Osho, I told myself, I'm not going to do anything silly. I'm allergic to gurus. I don't want someone to run my life. It's just, awful to explain to your parents. I hate the color orange, all of that. It's true. I showed up in blue jeans. I hate orange.
Yeah.
But here's somebody who knows. And that the rarity of finding someone who really knows and the intensity of being was so strong, I wasn't going to fool around.
But how did you know that it was someone who knows?
There's a thing called resonance. And in resonance, it's when one bell rings. If another bell is resonant, it also starts to ring. And we all resonate with different people in different ways. If someone has a strong heart, you'll resonate with their heart fully. If someone has a strong mind, you'll resonate through their ideas and through their mental capacities. And if someone has being, something in being starts to resonate in your being. It's almost like your own inner knowing starts to hum, starts to switch on.
So it's like an energetic connection rather than you know. It's kind of you feel something.
Right. It's an energetic connection, but actually it's like the way he is there, something in me starts to hum. Something, I can't tell you, but within 5 minutes of being in Osho's presence, I knew my own presence. I had been working as a therapist, and I knew 100 different problems with me, and was thrilled to find an enlightened man where I could say, help me with these problems. And when I went to see him once, I had to wait a long time to see him, and I had issues with anger, and I couldn't wait to say, tell me about my anger. And he called me up and said, Nishant, what about you? And one look in his eye and one moment of being there, I was totally fine. The resonance was so strong that my being was so whole in this moment that these other things were far, far, far away. And I just looked him in the eye and I knew I had a choice. I could not be true to this being and work on my problem, or forget the problem and be true to the being. And I just looked him in the eye and said, Osho, I'm fine right now. And everyone in the room broke out. I felt like the fool of the world, because you wait a month to get your chance to ask your question, and here it is, here's the moment, and you just say, it disappeared. But that's what happened.
Yeah.
And that's how resonance works at this deep level.
You see, I wonder if questions ever get truly answered. I think my experience is a little bit like yours, maybe less dramatic, but it's more like the question becomes irrelevant. The question disappears rather than you actually find an answer on that level, because actually it takes you somewhere else. If you've really got a question, it can take. And I guess that's where people that have these Japanese koans, they have to answer, which are impossible to answer. You just, somehow you spring up to a different level, you burst through it.
Right. Exactly. When someone has really meditated and really has being in them, that being kind of puts out a hum. And then this hum starts to hum in other people. And as that hum starts to hum in other people, psychological reality starts to become less real than it was, less holding, less binding. And this hum starts to become something more real, more interesting, more true.
Do you feel a hum now?
Sure.
Tell me about the hum. What do you feel now?
I feel deeply grateful. If I'm really honest, just deeply grateful. I feel kind of tenderness. That we're meeting as old friends, which we are, but also we're meeting in a place that's just this here now hum. And you know the hum, and I know the hum, and it's just going yes. And in this yes, there's a kind of playfulness to, yeah, we both got problems, and we got this, and we got that, and tonight there'll be, all of this stuff. But it's almost like an awareness that in the very center, in the very base, everything is quite fine. Very fine. And it's like a joke that two Sufis could share to each other, or two Zen masters that get together and just smile or just have a laugh, There's no need to say much. It's just a laugh in it. But also with me, there's with my psyche and my conditioning, there's also gratefulness and tenderness. Because I think as a therapist and as a meditation teacher, I work a lot to introduce people to hum and to help people explore and get to know themselves from this place of being. And when it's so freely offered and it's just here. Wow.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about your book, The Friend.
Uh-huh.
And I remember reading in the introduction that one of the motivations for writing the book was that there was a point where you realised how you were treating yourself. And this was a bit of a shock for you, and you wanted to kind of explain that we didn't have to treat ourselves that way.
Yes.
So let's start with that.
Yeah. Very strong experience. I was been a seeker doing all kinds of meditation and for many, many years. And one day I just stopped in the middle of the day and saw if anyone treated me the way I'm treating myself today, I'd punch him in the nose.
What did you actually mean by that? How were you treating yourself that day?
Well, the tone of voice. You have to go to the post office now. You have to make breakfast. You have to do this today. You have to do that. The tone of voice was not a kind tone of voice.
So it was like an internal dialogue you had towards yourself.
Yeah.
Mm.
And also this sense of pushing myself through the day's hoops. Okay, cross off this. Number 2, do this. Number 3, do this. Like you're one of these dancing dolphins or something that's supposed to A, B, C, D, and then you get a little good dinner at the end of the day for your reward. It's like a very strange thing.
And that's what happens a lot, because I notice it in myself. We have these ideas through the mind of things that we ought to do and we feel we need to do, and a lot of the time we don't always pick up on it. It becomes an unconscious drive, doesn't it?
Sure. And, if we're heartful with this, in the heartful moments, you see this unconscious drive is to keep ourselves a known person that other people can be proud of and we can be proud of. That's the heartful. If you're not so heartful, we just see we're really lost in what they call fear-based conditioning, And that's asleep. That's really what asleep is.
So what is some of the guidance you offer in your book?
Well, this started a whole series of little, like a snowball started rolling. I'm just noticing, when am I not kind with myself? Why am I not kind with myself? And it started to kind of wake up a lot of things, because for most of my life I had been connected with one spiritual school or another, and I could see that in the schools there was always the hope that the teacher would give me an answer, or I could fit in, and if I fit in, then I'm a good person. If I don't fit in, then I'm a bad person. That somehow something was way off base. And I saw that fundamentally it's uncomfortable just being me.
That's
without any dressing to it, without any reason to it, without any motivation, without any future, it's something uncomfortable about just being me.
That must have been a bit of a shock when you saw that.
Yes. And that, again, starts one of these holes opening up. And I'm grateful to my crazy self that when I see a hole opening up, I jump. I want to know it. I want to get in there.
So it comes back to this thing of having the courage again to follow what's opening.
Yes. And at this point, I have to give a lot of appreciation and gratefulness to Hamid Ali.
This is A.H. Almas.
A.H. Almas, yeah. Two things he said in this time really, really helped. One thing he said, if you really want to know something, you have to open your heart to it. And the other thing wasn't so much a direct statement, but an attitude I get from him, which is, if you really want to look inside, you have to let go of any judgment. You have to let go of any right or wrong, any approval. You have to go fearlessly into looking at yourself without good boy, bad boy, like, don't like, right, wrong, filters. In other words, open your heart to yourself. And as I started doing that, I realized how tricky that is for me and how tricky that is for most people. But actually, that's the center of my work with people now, is what happens if you really open your heart to your own experience? What happens if you open your heart to your own self?
So for people who are watching this, that's the starting point, isn't it? It's what are they feeling? They're seeing this on their computer screen or TV screen or iPod, whatever. It's what are they feeling now? Is that right?
I generally would say, what are you aware of now?
What are you aware of now? Okay.
Yeah. Because it could be thinking, it could be sensing in the body, it could be a breath, it could be emotion. Just whatever it is we're aware of now, to become aware of it and also aware of the way we handle it, how we process it. Most of the time, in order to be who we're supposed to be, we're all the time managing our own experience. Like, for example, here's an interview. Don't be scared. Don't breathe. Be alert. What happens to your legs? What happens to your hands? What happens to your body? What happens instead of... What I saw, to make it really short, is that most of us contract to our experience. And that through my perception, we learned how to be with how to experience when we're little kids. And we don't upgrade that system of how to experience the rest of our life. So when we get into feeling, we still feel feeling from the point of view of being a 3-year-old. I'm helpless. It's big. I'm small. It's bad. We have all of this physical, emotional contracting to the texture of our experience. And if someone can say, open your heart to it, don't be afraid, and whose belly can help you see, you're not wrong, you're not bad, just hang out with it, then experience goes from being a nightmare into something of a garden. And from something of a garden, it starts to open into spaciousness. And from spaciousness, all kinds of good things happen.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm remembering also there was, in your book, you were talking about a workshop you were giving somewhere, and someone asked you a question which I thought was a great question. And the question was, if so many people are looking for the truth, then why is it that so few people seem to find the truth?
Yes.
And I guess I'm bringing that in now because I think it ties into what you've just been saying. It's the truth to start with, in a way, is very simple, isn't it?
Yes.
We forget that. We expect something kind of gigantic and kind of dramatic. And in a way, it is dramatic, it is gigantic, but not in the way that we're programmed to maybe think it should be.
Yes. And because most of us develop a style or an attitude of experience, what we do is we try and push down what's natural, or which already is, devalue and push it away, and reach for what we should be. I should be cool. I should be calm. I should be meditative. I should be alert. I should be this. I shouldn't be thinking. At the same time, let's say you're meditating and you notice you're thinking. I shouldn't be thinking.
Really?
Shit, I'm thinking again. What happened to my bliss? What happened to all these great things that Buddha had talked about, and Osho, and where is all that?
Yeah.
And again, it's like if you can learn to be heartful here, and just to breathe with it, thinking isn't, it just needs a little bit of holding, just a little bit of holding. And thinking turns into feeling. And that feeling, if you can just breathe with it and hold it just a little bit, feeling starts to open up, and it's not something big and monster, and you don't have to be 3 years old. You can be here and now with it, and a certain quality of grace starts to come in. A certain quality of lightness starts to bubble. And then you're off to the races.
And whereabouts are you in yourself these days? You know, we talked many years about what happened many years ago in the Himalayas, and you had the falling feeling. Do you feel comfortable in yourself? Do you feel there's still a movement? Are you still growing in yourself?
Of course. Actually, I'm in an interesting phase of being very, very willing to hang out with an uncomfortable Nishant. And not only to take it on as my own uncomfortableness, but to breathe and see, well, maybe I'm just a wave in the ocean. And if this wave is able to be with itself, that does something to the whole ocean. And I'm not trying to be particularly enlightened or... I'm in love with love, and I work hard to see that whatever love in another person is respected and encouraged and allowed to manifest, and the same in me. But I know that most of the provocation for love comes out of difficult times.
Yeah, and we have some challenging times in the planet at the moment. Things are happening very fast, it seems.
Very fast. To be honest, as a therapist, I see all of us as waves in the ocean. And the people come as thinking that we're isolated. They say, how can I be happy by myself when actually the whole ocean is in turmoil right now?
Mm.
And when the whole ocean's in turmoil, it's a little bit of a dream to think that an isolated wave is going to be cool, calm, and happy.
Mm.
But if this wave can open its heart to being the wave, it starts to settle, and the ocean discharges some of its discomfort, and something goes deeper. Something of the grace quality starts to come. And also this wave starts to realize I'm connected to other waves.
In a way, that is freedom, isn't it? To realise that we are all connected, and we are not an individual little wave, we are part of the ocean.
Right.
The trouble is there isn't a lot of encouragement on that in society in general. We're encouraged to look the other way.
Well, yes. But I suspect that luxury is going to be less affordable.
Mm.
I also suspect that as we come to know, for me, a big piece here in the last years has been understanding trauma and trauma therapy. As you come to know that most of us generate the feeling of aloneness out of basic trauma. It's not existentially real, it's just a reaction to being hurt. Where we close off, and in closing off, that's our protection from being hurt. That's all it is.
Nishant, our time together is drawing to a close. I know you do these workshops, the psychology of love.
Yes.
Just tell us for a couple of minutes what happens at these workshops.
Well, a few things that happen in the workshops. The basic impulse of this psychology of love is to give people the skills to know how to feel a feeling. Simple, ordinary things. To know how to go through a feeling. To also hold the kind of presence where, as your presence becomes more real, another person is invited to be more real in themselves. So it's learning how to kind of start with the psychology that we all know and live in, and discover the field of presence that's underneath that, and relate to other people through that field of presence.
Thank you. And of course, you also cover this subject in your book, The Friend.
Yes.
Which I can recommend. So thank you very much, Nishant Matthews, for coming along and chatting with us here on Conscious TV. And thank you everyone for watching. And I hope we see you again soon. Goodbye.
This is a meditation you can do with any of your feelings at any time during the day that you like. It's called Essence Breath. It starts by breathing in, and as you breathe in, allow your chest to expand and widen, and your heart to widen and hold whatever feeling is there for you. You just simply breathe in and hold it for a count of 3 or 4 seconds. And then as you breathe out, you relax and let it go. And hold the out breath for 4 or 5 seconds. Breathing in, maybe it's the same, maybe it's different. Hold it. Breathing out, letting go. Breathing in, seeing if it's the same, or maybe it's a little lighter, or maybe there's something else to include in it. Breathing out, letting go. Breathing in. Allow the feeling to just expand just a little bit more. Breathing out, let it go. Breathing in, looking to see if there's something else that wants to be included. Breathing out, let it go. Breathing in, noticing that the feeling is less strident now, more inside you. And you can get as big as the feeling. Breathing out, let it go. And notice that as you let go, the space quality starts to open up. Breathing in, just allowing your heart to expand with any feeling that's there. Hold it, know it, feel it. Breathing out, let it go. And when you let go, just letting go so totally that the awareness of the space quality, something is okay even with these feelings. Breathing in, asking the feeling to reveal whatever it wants to reveal. Breathing out, letting go. And feeling the peacefulness that starts to come. Breathing in. Breathing out. This is a simple meditation that you can do at home, at work, on the bus, on the train, anytime you like. As a way of synchronizing all of the things in the psyche and the spaciousness of your being. Thank you.